Star Trek, the ultimate franchise. These are the voyages of 3 veteran Trekkies, Rich, Ian, and Toby. Their ongoing mission? To explore the vast Star Trek universe, to seek out new perspectives and fresh debates, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Beyond the Final Frontier.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with me, your host, Rich Matthews, and my fellow intrepid voyagers, Mr. Ian Spelling.
Hey there, everybody.
And Mr. Toby Weidman.
Hello.
Today, we will be talking about our top 7 directors of TV episodes. Now, the reason it's TV episodes is because if we included all directors, it would essentially be a list of Nick Meyer, Robert Wise, Jonathan Frakes, and it was a very narrow field otherwise. So we thought, well, it's interesting because although the TV director doesn't have the same ownership over their episodes as the executive producers do, as the showrunners across the whole series, nonetheless, it's interesting when you start looking at the patterns and whose name you might see on an episode in the opening credits that give you a little bit of sense of confidence that the episode is potentially going to be a good one. Now, I understand, Toby, you found it quite hard, apparently.
I did find it very hard, but I did want to say I've ruled out directors of all animated series.
Oh, yeah, no, me
simply
too.
Because I don't really know what an animation director does.
No, you have a voice director and animation director in it, and often multiple animation directors, so it for different functions, especially with CGI. It's blurrier, so I didn't go into animation either.
Yeah.
And none of them made my list, so...
But that does simplify things.
But I struggled with this. I actually feel really bad about the directors that I've left out.
Oh.
There's one in particular that I think really should be in my list and isn't.
Can we have some fun, Tobe? Start with that. Who did you leave out?
David Livingston.
Oh, wow.
The most prolific Star Trek director of all of them.
62 episodes.
Yeah. The thing was, he's a good director and he brings a lot of his own personality and he's very creative in what he shoots.
But
I was just looking at the episodes and none of his episodes are in my kind of top tier of favorites.
Mm.
And so I couldn't put him in there. There are people who have got much lower episode counts than him who I just had to include. I couldn't leave out.
He's in my honourable mentions. He's not on my list.
But he should be. He really should be.
Well, only if you're talking about being prolific. I mean, his best episode is probably The Visitor?
In the Hands of the Prophets, Mind's Eye, Rules of Acquisition.
Way of the Warrior, Call to Arms.
No, but he's not on my list. He didn't make it. And likewise, the big omission for me that I really had issues with is the reverse in terms of being prolific, but it was Avery Brooks. He almost made it onto mine for Far Beyond the Stars. And that alone, really, although for other potentially rejoined as well. And
David Carson was another one that I really... He's got a really low episode count. He did 4 TNG and 4 DS9. Mm-hmm. But the episodes that he did were Yesterday's Enterprise, Redemption 2, Emissary, The Next Phase, Dax, The Enemy. Move Along Home. We can discount that.
Yes. We might be talking about him later, Toby.
Yeah,
so.
Well, I couldn't include him, even though I love those episodes. The other thing I just wanted to say, and I want to be upfront about this, is it's very disappointing, but my list is dominated by white males.
Yeah, as is mine.
And I know that is a sign of the times, and looking at the list of directors for New Trek, there is more diversity in there, so you'd have to say things are improving on that front, which is a very, very good thing. But for this list, I'm afraid there's no escaping white men.
Yeah, well, we don't do tokenism, do we? So it's like if we all talk about how much we like Gates' episodes, but it's not. This is a top 7. This is the directors who have had the most impact on us in the shows, and so it's again you could have manufactured it, but I think that's as insulting as not including people. To be honest, to do that. So it's a reflection of who we are when we watch Star Trek, I think, and
also a reflection of the times.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
The 80s and 90s.
I mean, the Berman era was 90%, 95% male.
Mm.
You had Gabrielle and you had Roxanne and you had Gates but there were not a lot of females behind the camera. But in general, there weren't at the time. And look, in fairness to the Berman era, he gave several of the women the opportunity.
Yep. And look, Jerry Taylor, as I said up front, that's the power roles are the executive producer roles, and Jerry Taylor got to the top of the pyramid. So it's worth acknowledging that as a sort of ownership thing. But yeah, you're quite right. In terms of the mechanics of being on set directing, yeah, it was very limited.
Well, Dorothy before her as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is interesting. So I'll kick off with my first white man. Yeah.
Good segue.
Thank you. My number 7 is Rob Bowman, who is predominantly an early TNG director in terms of I think he did the last couple he did were like Brothers in season 4. Then after that he exited the show to go essentially co-run the X-Files ultimately and ended up directing the X-Files movie. But Rob Bowman was the first directing name that I remember always registering. Probably starting with Data Law, but then also I think retrospectively I knew that he did No One Has Gone Before as well. And then if you carry that through to Elementary Dear Data as well, and Q Who, and then as I said, Brothers and A Matter of Honor, basically his name was the first name where if I saw it in the credits, I was like, okay, great. In a troubled first couple of seasons, I think he was potentially the most consistent hand, and he did tight, solid, exciting episodes. He made the most of his central conceits, whether it was using Brent Spiner in multiple roles or the first sort of really metaphysical holodeck episode with Moriarty. He was a great director, as proven as he went on to his subsequent career on the X-Files, where he made his name. That's my number 7.
Didn't even make my honourable mentions. I guess I ignore a lot of early TNG.
Well, that's unfairly, I would say.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
I'm going to exactly echo what Toby just said. I like Rob Bowman, but I much prefer his work on the X-Files.
Yeah, I agree with that. But honestly, when we made this theme, his was one of the first names that went straight in my head. So Ian, you're number 7.
I am going with Mark Daniels and Joseph Pepney. 2 old white men. Who were 2 old white men when they directed the original series back in the day, actually. These guys are more or less the founding fathers of the Star Trek directorial ethos. Okay, they're the ones who established a lot of the visual landscape of what we saw on the shows. They're the ones who made the use of caves on a set and whatever little bit of outdoor shooting they got to do. They're the ones who established the shots on the bridge and how those were filmed. They were the ones who went in for the close-up of, Leonard Nimoy's eyebrow rising. And they were venerable, respected television directors in the 60s who were able to think outside the box with Star Trek. Their episodes feel bigger than the modest or no budget that they had on Star Trek. If you're talking Mark Daniels, you're looking at Where No Man Has Gone Before, Naked Time, Balance of Terror. When you have the Enterprise and the Romulan, Bird of Prey, stalking one another, I mean, that's a submarine battle in the 1960s on a shoestring budget. And it cooks, man. It's visually interesting. It is super cool. And it gave us Kirk and the Romulan commander acknowledging each other as these great adversaries on more or less view screens. So, I mean, look, that set the template for Wrath of Khan.
Indeed, absolutely.
Daniels and Pevney made Star Trek look like what it looks like. And then Pevney, Devil in the Dark, is pretty much my favorite episode of any Star Trek series across the board. And he had great guest stars, like also Mark Leonard, but Bill Campbell, Jane Wyatt. He gave us Kirk and Nagorn and almost made that interesting, considering that it was more or less a slow motion battle on Cestus 3, and made the Metrons a force from a distance and a philosophical force as well.
And Joan Collins, of course.
Of course. And then if you think about it, if we say Daniels established Trek's visual style, I'd say Pevney more or less perfected it.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. They're higher on my list. My seventh spot is not a man. Woo! You mentioned her earlier. It's Gabrielle Beaumont. She didn't have a huge number, 7 episodes of TNG, 1 of DS9 and 1 of Voyager, but they're pretty much all great. There's a couple, Suddenly Human, maybe not one of the best, but she did Lower Decks, which is one of my all-time favourite episodes. She did In Purgatory's Shadow, another one of my all-time favourite episodes. And she did Blink of an Eye, which is one of my favourite Voyager episodes. And you can throw in Disaster, Booby Trap, Face the Enemy. They're all very, very good. I also think she needs singling out, as she was a trailblazer. She was the first woman director on the franchise. She was British, which I like a lot. She was born in Gerrards Cross in Buckinghamshire. And she worked for the BBC and ITV before moving to Hollywood, where she just directed a horror film, The Godsend, in 1980, which I discovered is on Amazon Prime, certainly on the UK Amazon Prime, and I'm going to make sure I watch it because I've not seen it. She went over to Hollywood trying to kind of get some business on the back of that, where she bumped into Aaron Spelling, the legendary TV producer, and he was essentially under pressure to find female directors.
Dun 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 dun. Dun 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 dun. No relationship to me, by the way.
Are we sure?
Yeah, we are.
But yeah, he was the one who brought her on to shows like Dynasty or Dynasty, MASH, Dukes of Hazzard, Cagney and Lacey, LA Law, Miami Vice, Beverly Hills 90210, and of course Star Trek, where she started with the Berman era. She sadly passed away in 2022, and I had the honour of writing her obituary for BAFTA. It was a nice one to do. So that's it.
Cool.
She also wrote and directed Diana, a tribute to the People's Princess in 1998.
God.
Which is not the best.
Really? That's a shock.
Do you guys remember who she was married to?
I don't.
No, I don't.
She was married to Olaf Pooley, who was a Voyager guest star and was, for a brief window of time, Star Trek's oldest living actor.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
How old?
Over 100. I think he died at 100.
Wow.
Well, Shatner's going for it.
I mean, he died, like I had interviewed him for Star Trek.com, and I believe he died like 2 months later.
Gosh.
Do you remember what episode he was in?
Blink of an eye.
Excellent. Ooh, little lovely factoid. My number 6 basically is There Are 4 Lights. Les Landau, who did, I think, something either close to or just a bit more than 40 episodes in all. Again, I don't think you could get a more solid...
58, Rich.
Is it 58? Is it really that many?
Yeah.
Wow, so he did loads.
I thought you were supposed to watch all 58.
A lot of this is from memory, I hate to say it. That's how it goes, really, when trying to assess all the directors of all Star Trek, I guess. But Les Landau directed Family, Sarek, Tapestry, so a very good emotional director, very good with the character relationships, but also, as I said, Chain of Command Part 2, which we all agree is one of the greatest Star Trek episodes. And Deja Q, my favourite Q episode, very funny. Sins of the Father, Unification, also Time's Arrow, slightly less successful there, but generally one of those prolific directors who was pretty consistent across his time on the franchise.
My number 6 is Cliff Bole.
Cliff Bole.
Yep, he was one of the more dependable directors. He could come in and he did all different sorts of episodes across Star Trek. And he was kind of a go-to guy for important episodes. Die is Cast, Defector, Cause and Effect, on and on. He had, again, I mean, I sometimes look at the performances from the guest stars. Part of directing any long-running show is keeping the regular cast on point, but a big chunk of it is these guys who come in there for one-offs or recurring, and the women, obviously, and getting powerful performances out of them. And, he directed Tom Wright. He did Andreas Katsoulis. He had David Warner. He had the great scene where Riker gives the order to fire on Locutus and the Borg cube. It pays off in part 2.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, yes, it does. We'll never agree on that. I love part 2.
Oh, man. I just thought that he's underrated as a director.
I agree.
Which is why I have him on my list versus, say, a Les Landau, whose work I really, really, really liked. And I will also tell you that Les directed my episode of Sanctuary, where I was an extra. I was a Bajoran on Ops. He came over to me and he said, "Look, I know you don't have a line of dialogue, but I'm going to make sure we get you in a shot that you can't be taken out of." So he had me walk by like twice and said, "Let's make sure we get you, your moment."
That's awesome.
He's definitely cool in my book and would be number 8 on my list if we were going that far, or 9 if I broke up Pevney and Daniels. Anyway, Cliff Bull is way up there on my list, and it's funny. There are just so many other good directors that honestly I thought Bull was going to be higher on my list, but I'm comfortable with him at 6. And he did, if I'm not mistaken, 41 episodes.
I can tell you exactly. He did 42.
42.
Mostly TNG.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that also factors into my choosing him because, most people feel that TNG is the best of the Star Trek series.
Yes.
And he directed a huge percentage of those episodes.
And important ones.
Yes.
Yeah, he's higher on my list.
And mine.
But my next choice is probably going to be much higher on your 2 lists. It's Jonathan Frakes. So he did 31 episodes in total and 2 films, of course. And I would describe him as Mr. Reliable, just because of his longevity. 7 separate series and the 2 films.
And still doing it.
Yeah. One of the things with a TV series is that it often feels like they're making it to a uniform style. So it's actually difficult to kind of imprint a directorial vision onto or add some personal style or flair. And I think I do find that with Frakes' work, that I find it quite hard to define what his style is. And that's not to say he's not talented. He obviously is. We all look forward to his episodes. When we learned that he was going to be doing an episode of Starfleet Academy, we were all excited for that episode. When you do see his name as director, at worst it's going to be decently directed, and at best it's probably going to be a corker.
You tend to get really good at work from the actors.
Yeah, well, this is one of the things I think if you are going to, if there is a style that I can put him, I think it comes from the fact that he was an actor, or he is an actor himself, and so he understands the emotional drama, but he also knows when he's captured the best take. So because he can see the actors and go, right, they're not going to improve on that. I know he has this nickname as being 2 takes Frakes, which isn't accurate, but it's because he's known to shoot fast, and I think partly that is because he understands the actors and he understands what's going to be their best performance. And also, I would say I've actually never met Jonathan Frakes, but everyone who has seemed to say that he is one of the nicest guys in Star Trek. Like, no one seems to have a bad word to say about him.
I think we can both, and I can vouch for that. He's really nice.
Yeah, no question.
And I think that the most important thing is that he just understands Trek. He's been doing it so long, he knows why the fans love it.
Understands and respects it.
Yeah. And he's able to add that little bit of, propulsive energy into the story because he knows what the fans want.
Imagine what he could have done with Nemesis.
Not much.
You're saying it's all in the script?
A lot of it is in the script. Say what you will about Stewart. Baird had his action chops down pat. The movie didn't live or die on its action. That was the script. That was the issue, unfortunately. I
do have a quote from an interview with Frakes, which I think does summarize what he brings as a director. And the quote is from an interview that was on trekmovie.com. If you don't care about the characters, you don't focus on the heart, and then it doesn't really matter how cool it looks. And I think that summarizes what his focus is.
That's why that joystick worked.
Okay. I'm just not sure about that, but
I think it was the Viagra.
Yeah. Hey! That's what the Fountain of Youth really is. The little blue pill they gave out. So my number 5, contrary to expectations, I suspect to some degree, is Joseph Pevney.
Wow. Okay. You did fool me.
Yeah.
I never thought you'd go with an original series director.
Well, I don't think you can argue with the run of great episode franchise greats he did. Sitting on the Edge of Forever.
It's the aesthetic of the original, which you seem to constantly have a problem with.
Well, yes, but If I was going to name episodes that sort of transcend some of the limitations of the production they had, right? Sitting on the Edge of Forever, A Mock Time, Trouble with Tribbles, Journey to Babel, Devil in the Dark, Arena for all the reasons Ian said. That shouldn't work. Arena is sort of the personification of the problems I've always had retrospectively watching original series. It's not fair. It was just the prism I saw it through as a kid, post Star Wars. And when I had the Star Trek movies as a kid unspooling in front of me, it was hard for me to be motivated for the original series, and that stuck to some degree. And although I can intellectually view it contextually, it means they don't have a lot of my heart. But the ones that do, as Ian said, Mark Daniels comes close, but I think Pevney's run is, and like he won a Saturn, didn't he? Or sorry, not a Saturn, a Hugo for City on the Edge of Forever.
They both did. Daniels won one as well.
Did he? What did Daniels win it for?
Daniels won it for The Menagerie.
Oh, cool. Okay, that does make sense. But he was also, but isn't in the same year, wasn't Pevney nominated multiple times, like including for The Trouble with Tribbles and A Mock Time as well, which is pretty amazing. So, but yeah, my number 5, Pevney, without a doubt.
My number 5 is LeVar Burton.
Woo!
LeVar kind of snuck in there. He became a very reliable director. He is very good at counterbalancing the big stuff with the emotional heartbeat stuff. We can cite his episodes as among the best. I would say The Pegasus, Cogenitor, The Augments, Behind the Lines, First Flight, and particularly Timeless. Handled wrong, I think Timeless could have been a very bad episode. A lot of these funky, time travel-y type of episodes always run the risk of being silly. And he really, really grounded that particular episode. LeVar is a consistent director. He directed a good number of the better episodes of the later shows. A lot of the criticism of the later shows is the scripts and the inability of those scripts to develop the characters. And I think LeVar, with his ability to mix big stuff with the small stuff, gave a lot of the actors, if not great episodes, great moments. And I think that unto itself is a very big deal. When you talk to fans of shows like Enterprise and whatnot, the later Star Trek, they will typically point to character moments rather than, hey, this is one of the best Star Trek episodes, period. And you know what? Moments can count as much as whole episodes, especially for the actors who don't get as much to do, like the Linda Parks on Enterprise. If she gets a good moment in an episode, that might be equal to, Scott Bakula's arc in an episode. And that's important stuff.
To that point, LeVar directed Similitude, which is Conor Trinneer's best episode by a long way.
Yeah. He snuck in there at number 5 for me, which was a huge surprise, if I'm being honest. He deserves the 5th spot. But I'm just saying I didn't have it in my head that he would be that high. But when I went through the episodes, I realized he really does deserve this slot.
Yeah, he's an honourable mention for me.
He's very much an honourable mention for me, yeah.
Yeah.
My 5th spot has already been mentioned. It's Cliff Bole. I think if you have an alien species named after you, you deserve to be in anyone's list of Star Trek directors. Unlike Frakes, I think his style is clearer. You can tell it's a Cliff Bole episode. He's really good at framing a scene. And he often chooses very interesting fixed angles, like looking from below, looking up. And he does subtle camera movements that match the movement of characters on the screen, which I really, really enjoy out of his stuff. He directed a lot of action series in the past, and I think he understood how to keep such action sequences tense and tight, which is what we talked about. Episodes like Best of Both Worlds, Dark Frontier, Redemption, stories that have got a lot of action in them, and I think he knew how to do that. I mean, he worked on things like $6 Million Man, Charlie's Angels, TJ Hooker, Baywatch, X-Files, Supernatural. You mentioned the episodes. I'd throw in stuff like Remember Me and Eye of the Beholder, Defiant, Meld, Tuvix, False Prophets. These are all good episodes. I mean, let's forget Aquiel and Liaisons.
Well, if you direct, how many episodes was it? There's going to be a couple of duff ones.
42. 25 Next Gen, 7 Deep Space Nine, and 10 Voyager. But yeah, a very good director. He also he died in 2014. Just to mention that.
Oh, I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, I interviewed him for StarTrek.com. He was a great interview.
Do you know what's? I mean, maybe we'll come to this, but Les Landau, I found nothing on him. I really did. I mean, a good hour's search online to find interviews with him. I couldn't find anything. I couldn't even find whether he was alive or dead.
He is alive. It was very interesting. I almost got to speak to him again. I guess not this year, last year. He's friends with David Livingston, or lives right near David Livingston, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I said I was hoping to interview him or get some comments from him about something. And Livingston said, yeah, I told him you wanted to, he says hello. I gave him your number. And of course, I never heard from him. So he's around, but he vanished.
He's an enigma.
He's very, very quiet. But Cliff Bole, there's quite a lot. You can find quite a lot about him and interviews and things like that. So, yeah.
It's always helpful, isn't it?
Yeah.
My number 4, we've already mentioned, but is on my list, so high for 2 episodes, not counting the film he directed. It's David Carson as the director of my single favourite episode of Star Trek, Yesterday's Enterprise,
yeah.
Yeah, and Emissary, both of which are awesome. I mean, but Yesterday's Enterprise, even if he'd only ever done that, I would have him on this list.
Really?
Yeah, I love. So yeah, I know. I think it's great, but also he did a solid job with Generations, and I think probably in many ways paved the way for Frakes to take on a movie in terms of TV directors porting over to big screen instead of drafting someone in. Obviously, that First Contact remains the next gen movie highlight, but I think Generations is a strong film, and also probably a harder gig in some ways, in the fact that it was this bridge movie, and everyone's talked about extensively that Brannon Braga and Ronald D. Moore had essentially used up most of their mojo on All Good Things in close proximity to writing Generations. But that said, it's still an effective movie with many great set pieces, as we've already said before.
And importantly, I think it actually feels like a movie.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. But that's also what I was going to say, actually. That relates, I think one of the things which marks Yesterday's Enterprise out is it feels very cinematic for a single episode, for 44 minutes back in 1990. And it feels incredibly epic for a TV show in that era with that sort of money. Is pretty, and in that 4:3 ratio is pretty amazing. And so you might have had a painful birth in terms of a script, but the execution was sublime.
Just that switch from Worf to Yar, just that one shot is praiseworthy.
And the cell at the end of this stakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is very similar to what Ian was saying about Balance of Terror, which is he does a lot with very little, more than the original series had, of course, but still, that moment when Picard vaults over to fire those torpedoes is epic and could be terrible, but Patrick Stewart is reliable, and it's a great piece of direction, and everything comes together, and the focus and the clarity and the push-in is really good. Yesterday's Enterprise alone would get him on this list, but Emissary and Generations solidify the position.
Redemption 2, the next phase.
Yeah, I know, but
Good episode.
You know my feeling about Redemption.
Move Along Home. Let's forget about that one.
Well, we always forget about Move Along Home. But, imagine it might even have been worse. So, Ian, your number 4.
All right, my number 4 is Jim Conway, James L. Conway, as he's usually credited as. Again, I think he's a little bit underrated. I thought he always gave us very cool visual elements. He directed one of the most, I'll use the word visually exciting episodes of The Next Generation, which was Frame of Mind. It's a harrowing episode. Those are harrowing visions and shots that he pulled off. He got a great performance out of Frakes in that episode. Just look at his list. I mean, Duet, which is one of my single favorite episodes, Little Green Men, which is very funny, Way of the Warrior, For the Cause, Apocalypse Rising. I love the 37s, Persistence of Vision. Death Wish is a really interesting, talky episode. Innocence isn't a great episode, but I'm in it, so it's on my list. He did the Enterprise pilot, and that is arguably the best episode of Enterprise, period. And In a Mirror Darkly, which is just supreme Enterprise. You know, considering he did, I believe it's a total of
18
episodes, his batting average, to use our American term, is out of the world. You know, this is a whole debate that we could have. You have to remember that when they started with Frakes, they gave him great scripts. So part of this was a fledgling director learning the ropes with good material.
Mm-hmm.
Where you really become a strong director is when you make something out of so-so material. And Frakes ended up becoming that guy as well. But he started with unbelievable scripts. I thought Conway had a very good ratio of great scripts that he made greater, and good scripts that he made better, and so-so scripts that he made watchable.
He was my number 8.
He was in my honourable mentions as well, yeah. Although my honourable mentions is so long, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so is mine.
I know, mine too.
But it was, it was. He came close to being on the list, and it was by the splitting of the smallest hairs.
My 4th spot is Mark Daniels, the original series director. So the look of the original series, it's something that I enjoy a lot. The bright colours, that sort of purple background lighting that was always hanging around in the corridor shots, the soft focus on the women when they're close-ups. It was very much the style of the 60s, and I think Daniels was instrumental in sort of creating that look for Star Trek. The stories ignited my imagination as a young child. The characters were intriguing and pulled me into those stories, and the direction perfectly married those two together. Some other people I can say, other directors, Ralph Sinensky, Vincent McEverty, Joe Pevney, they brought this universe to life for me, and that's the reason why I love Star Trek. One thing that we didn't mention is that Daniels had a long association with Lucille Ball. He directed the first 38 episodes of I Love Lucy, and later he directed episodes of Life with Lucy in the 1980s. So he had a long association with Lucille Ball, and he also previously worked with Gene Roddenberry on The Lieutenant, which probably got him the Star Trek job.
It did.
He's one of the key people in the evolution of Star Trek. And I'm just going to mention that he died in 1989. Honour his memory by mentioning that. That's it. My number 4.
Well, my number 3 is the director that Kate Mulgrew calls Rick Colby.
Jinx. We're both the same.
Who is, I think he was one of the prolific ones, wasn't he? Did he do 48 episodes? Yeah.
TNG, DS9, Voyager, and Enterprise.
Oh, huge span, but actually it's 2 key overlaps for me. It's All Good Things, one of the finest TV finales ever made, and Caretaker, which, when you talk about, we were talking about how we said how much more how we all enjoyed that more than we remembered, and how strong it was. But at the time, I loved Caretaker, and seeing him do that sort of finishing off Next Gen and then kicking off Voyager in that way so strongly is quite a thing. But that's not even to mention Darmok, again, which is one of Ian's favourite episodes, which has come up a few times, and such a great exploration of an alien race and communication and what it means to be Starfleet. Rightful Heir, Thine Own Self. There are just dozens. Already 48 episodes, and he's really, really good, and snuck higher than I thought, because weirdly I thought of him slightly as a journeyman, but then you look at just All Good Things and Caretaker and think, my God, actually, that's brilliant work.
I can't believe you haven't mentioned Arman Bashir.
Well, I know, but
it's like you've mentioned previous times how much you love that episode.
I know. I do love Arman. It's not. Yes, it's true. It's a good point. That I noticed. So, research for another upcoming episode. There's some overlap, and I didn't want to just say the same episodes all the time.
But equally, he did Remember. It was my number 1 in our Dreams episode.
I think the point is his direction is more creative than I think for some reason the sort of body of work implies. But if you think about the deftness of the back and forth and the connectivity of the drama and the emotion in All Good Things and how good that is, as a 90-minute piece of drama, let alone as Star Trek. And the complexity of the issues, the themes, the storytelling, all of it. It's just great work.
I think this is the thing. He was handed 2 very tricky episodes in All Good Things, which is the farewell, the goodbye. We knew there were films coming, but on the small screen, it was farewell to beloved characters.
Yes.
And then he was trusted to introduce us to a whole new cast of characters and a brand new setting. And those are very difficult jobs to do, and he accomplished them very, very well.
I mean, it's an interesting idea, and I don't know whether you know, but in terms of because David Carson was given Generations and Rick Colby was given All Good Things, and those things were developed in such tandem and tightness due to the scheduling. I'd be very curious to see if that was ever possible, considered to be reversed, or...
You know what? That would be a very good question for Rick Berman. I think they just felt Carson would be more filmic. There's got to be some story as to the politics and the reasons why, one was given the film and one was given the pilot. It's a very fair question.
I just wanted to say he's also one of the 5 Hugo winners, 5 directors who's won a Hugo. Which he got for All Good Things. And the other thing I wanted to say, stylistically, and I don't know whether this is because he was German, but I think he understands shadow really well. He's very good with light and dark. He really is. And he also likes fixed close-ups and quick pans, I noticed.
Yeah, I mean, that's if you're going to put out a visual style from All Good Things, it's the use of the close-up as the connective tissue. He uses the close-up very cleverly for the edit.
But he does that in all of his episodes. And I agree with Toby's point on that.
Well, yeah. One final thing, he died in 2012. But he was my 3rd spot as well.
And he's my 3rd, by the way. He had stopped directing and was teaching when he passed away.
Oh, I'd love to have him as a teacher. That would have been great.
And, what's really interesting is he does have a lot of emotional episodes, but he was succinct and to the point, and he had a very thick German accent. So he came across on set as a very no-nonsense guy. My very first set visit to Star Trek, other than Star Trek 4, which I did when I was in college and I wasn't doing a piece on it, as a journalist, my first professional set visit to Star Trek was the Masterpiece Society. Not a particularly memorable episode, but I remember distinctly him on set. And then let me tell you a quick funny story that happened, because my set visit, being the first, was almost my last.
Oh, what did you do?
Here you go, I'm telling you. All joking aside, I always used 2 tape recorders when I did my interviews. A regular size cassette tape recorder and a mini cassette recorder.
Very wise.
I go to Masterpiece Society and I have 2 recorders. I walk around, hold them both in my hand and press the record button. And apparently one of them didn't work. So I do my interviews on set with Ron Canada and Marina and Rick and all of that. And I go as far back on the soundstage as I humanly can. And I put my 2 tape recorders under a table, having rewound the larger tape recorder to let it play and record on the smaller recorder. They're shooting the next scene. And I hear the sound guy, "Who's talking? What is that noise in the background?" Well, it was my freaking recorder playing. And I don't know if they realized that, obviously it was like, Rick Colby talking, interrupting Rick Colby directing the scene. Oh my God, what is that? And I'm going, oh fuck. And I have my hand over my head and I walk to the back, and honestly, that could have been a death knell. I have no idea how much it cost to redo a shot, but there was displeasure on the set of the Masterpiece Society in that moment, and it was all my fault.
Is that when your hair fell out?
Probably the last vestiges of it, yes. They should have called it the Hairpiece Society. And I was mortified beyond mortified. 30-something years later, I am still mortified by that particular moment.
That's the shit we all fear when you do set visits.
I can tell you a story about interviewing Jolene Blaylock, which equally, I still have nightmares about it. But Colby was known as the Baron, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Because of his thick German accent.
And his no-nonsense nature when directing. So it was always interesting to me that he did a number of emotional episodes. He does not wallow in emotion, but he does let the emotion play out. And that, just given his background, kind of surprised me a little bit. There are some beautiful grace notes in his episodes. I would say Man of the People has many of them. I would say All Good Things, obviously.
Darmok for sure.
Darmok for sure, absolutely. Melora, although the script let everybody down. And how about Blood Oath, with great humor and great pathos in there. And then how about the, Sound of Her Voice, Siege of AR 558, Till Death Do Us Part. I mean, he did some really, really good emotional stuff. And we will ignore Silent Enemy, his one Enterprise episode.
Again, as we've said, you do that many episodes, there's going to be a couple of clunkers thrown in there, and as you say. So
I mean, up the long ladder, come on.
Yeah, right. But again, he absolutely deserves. All three of us have him at number 3, correct?
We do. Yeah, indeed.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so that takes me to my number 2 then. And I think my list is going to be covering old ground now. So my number 2 is Frakes.
My number 2 is Frakes.
There you go.
My number 6 is Frakes.
I agree with everything you said, Tobes, but when I think of Frakes' episode, and it's kind of nice that, especially in Next Gen, when you see him growing as a director, as you see him developing, and I think Ian's absolutely bang on. Clearly, a neophyte director, an equivalent inexperienced director of the similar number of credits, would not be given the drumhead normally. So he had an accelerated quality of scripts given to him, but I think it reflected the fact that he did them so well. I mean, The Offspring is a hell of an episode to start with.
But he was the first graduate of the director in training school that Berman set up, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he showed the chops for it, didn't he? I mean,
but I think maybe that's the reason why he gets given this stuff, is like he's the one that they kind of want to make an example of, that the director in training program works. So give him a really good script, and it's going to be hard for him to mess up.
Yeah, but I agree with that totally. And it was that the thing that was interesting was, in a weird way, his real chops on Star Trek solidified once he was outside of his own cast. And as soon as he started directing other episodes, other series in Star Trek and things, I think it really showed that he went beyond his original roots in Star Trek. Obviously, First Contact is amazing film. Insurrection is underrated. We're all agreed on that now. It's gone up in our esteem over time, and certainly would have been an exemplary episode. Past Tense Part 2, projections on Voyager. I mean, it's just, even those old scientists, where he knew he could tailor his direction to the cast, as he was very good at, allowed them to be a bit more improvisational. The only thing is, it's always a bit sad. I think he was on his podcast with Brent recently, was talking about ending up in movie director jail because of Thunderbirds. Sort of essentially putting the kibosh on his movie directing career, and that is a bit of a tragedy. But then again, would we have had him available to so much of Star Trek, especially now, where that deep respect and love for Star Trek, which we've all spoken about, helps elevate material which otherwise might suffer, and has suffered under less experienced hands. Toby, as you said, when you see his name on a Starfleet Academy episode, you go, okay, well, whatever's gone before, this is a Frakes episode. This is a new baseline. Let's see what Frakes can do.
I really don't have a ton to add to that. Frakes is my number 2 as well. Oddly enough, I was kind of surprised when I was doing my research that he only directed 8 episodes of Next Gen. He did a trio of Deep Space, a trio of Voyager, the 2 films. The show he directed the most is Discovery. And People of Earth, excellent episode. I thought he had more to do as an actor on Discovery than the episodes he got to direct. I thought he did some good stuff with what he was given on Picard. Those Old Scientists is a entertaining hour of Star Trek television. And he only did the 1 Academy episode, 300th Night. That's one of those ones where he took not a great script and at least made it watchable. When we think of Frakes as a director, oddly enough, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is First Contact. That is the film that really proved that Next Gen belongs on the big screen. That's in a very important note, A, and B, it happens to be a great film. And it was also incredibly successful at the box office. So when you put all of those pieces together, that makes him, period, an important Star Trek director, because it was a big deal that Next Gen prove itself beyond generations, because that had Kirk and Shatner in it. It really stood on its own. And I would say, yes, he is a guy who helped behind the scenes a lot of the younger actors on Discovery and Strange New Worlds find their footing, and I would assume on Academy as well, find what they needed out of these characters and what it means to be a part of Star Trek. He is no question an actor's director, but over the years, with lots of experience, he has become an incredibly technically proficient director, working with blue screens and working with the visual effects and working with the giant screen now on the newer shows.
He's unfazed, isn't he? Which is not easy.
Right. And, look, he is in his 70s. He's young on the calendar, but old in experience. And he's coming to modern Star Trek from 30-something years ago. The technical business of making Star Trek, from The Offspring to 300th Night, there is the unbelievable swing of the pendulum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His camera moves, and it moved then, and it moves now. His episodes are not boring to watch.
Never.
He's turned into a really visually interesting director. And while I did not love Thunderbirds as a movie, there are some really good shots in it. And I would have loved, he was supposed to do Total Recall. Yeah, he was supposed to do Total Recall too. And that never quite panned out. And that one kills me, because I would have loved to have seen what he would have done with that. Also, by the way, he did multiple episodes of Roswell and did a killer job on those. He's really directed some interesting stuff over the years.
Well, if we do get a chance to talk to him, one of the things that I'm very curious about, that technical bridging that you speak of, I wonder if actually, because by doing First Contact and Insurrection, he was there at the switchover from a lot of models to digital.
Correct.
So I wonder how much having to do that on that scale set him up for being able to deal with and basically knowing how to use the team, how to use the technicians around him.
Not just that, the switch for TV, switching to digital and having that instant review of what's just been shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
And framing. I mean, let's not forget that he made a jump from 4:3 to 2.35 to 1. In terms of framing and if you've never directed in CinemaScope ratio, that's a profoundly different.
He does like a wide shot.
Yeah.
That is one thing that you can say about him. He does like the big wide shot.
I think that's what you can feel in First Contact, is sort of, he fills his lungs, so to speak, with what he's got at his disposal in terms of the scope and the size of the image and things. Yeah, absolutely.
My number 2 is Joseph Pevney, who we've spoken about. He's higher than Daniels because he directed more of my favourite episodes: Devil in the Dark, The Mock Time, City on the Edge of Forever, Taste of Armageddon, Journey to Babel. Trouble with Tribbles was his as well. And even kind of like the more ridiculous stuff like Cat's Paw. He had fun in those episodes. You could see it. The pullback when Kirk, Spock and McCoy are chained up in the dungeon and they pull back from bones to reveal a skeleton, literally bones, also hanging up next to McCoy. Just little fun stuff like that. I think that comes down to Pevney. He died in 2008.
You like the Grim Reaper.
Well, it's just I want to honour these people, and so I think it's.
I get that. I'm just like, oh God, please let this one be alive. Please let this person be alive.
I would say that he lived to the age of 96, and he married his third wife in 2002 at the age of 90. So yeah.
Wow.
I read a few of his obituaries written about him, and they described him as a journeyman director, and I'm not sure I really agree with that. The fact that he had directed films, including James Cagney in the Lon Chaney biopic Man of a Thousand Faces. That's probably his most famous, but he'd also directed Rock Hudson, Deborah Reynolds. So he came from film to TV, and he had been an actor as well. He had been in several films and TV shows. So I think he may be similar to Frakes. He brought that know-how of understanding how to bring out a good performance on camera. He loves the zoom, particularly when there's a point of intrigue, and it's usually accompanied with a sting of music, like the dun 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 kind of thing, particularly on faces. He loves to zoom in on a face.
No, I do think of that as being very TOS. So, yeah.
He's someone, if I see his name come up on the credits, I'm
You dial
always
in.
excited.
Yeah.
Because I know it's going to be a good episode.
Before I do my number one, I think we've pretty much covered all my honourable mentions except one, which is, so I'll just drop them in now, which is, I did toy with putting Terry and Metalis on the list, but I decided 2 episodes of Picard probably not quite enough, but it does show how much I love the Vox and the Last Generation. For me, they essentially like the last movie. I would be remiss to not mention how good a landing that is and what a good solid piece of direction he does. But my number one we've already talked about is Cliff Bolt. Best of both worlds, and one of my favourite early episodes, Conspiracy, which can be divisive, I think, now for some people, but I remember really loving Conspiracy. It was at that point in my life where I was really starting to dig dark conspiratorial plots, and that's why I still have such a...
Guess what? I love that episode as well.
Yeah. So as someone who would grow into a teenager who would eat up films like JFK, Conspiracy was great, and I liked the dark tone. And then when I found out that there was an uncut version, which we didn't see for years, with the exploding head and the phasering of Remek's chest and all this sort of stuff, which was all not included in UK airing because it went out at 6 p.m. in the evening, pre-Watershed, that I had no idea it was even better than I remember it when I finally saw the uncut version. But Hollow Pursuits, Remember Me, the original First Contact, which I think is an underrated episode, and I've always liked that. BB Newirth, and that I think is great, and the device of telling it from the alien point of view is really interesting. I mean, like the Q and the Grey is an underrated episode for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I didn't choose on the basis of being prolific. He was both prolific and great. And as much as Yesterday's Enterprise is my favourite single episode of Star Trek, if I could only have one, I would cheat, call my Ian and do a tie, which is out of a double episode, I'll have the best of both worlds. There you go, my number one, Cliff Bolt.
My number one is David Livingston.
Good. I'm glad someone put him in because I feel so guilty for leaving him out.
And you should, you cold-hearted bastard. There was just no question. I knew he was going to be number one, and then when I did my research for this, honestly, it backed itself up with no issues whatsoever. I mean, he directed dozens of episodes, and he directed... There aren't too many clinkers among them. And again, he is one of the guys who took, so-so scripts and made them watchable, good scripts and made them really good, and great scripts and made them exceptional. What was interesting to me in double checking everything here was that he only directed 2 episodes of The Next Generation. He did 17 of Deep Space Nine. And do you have any clue how many Voyagers he did, guys?
I know exactly. 28.
Yeah, 28. So think about the math on that, the percentage of that show that he directed, just pure hours. It is a lot. And if you just go through the list, Nagus is terrific, Hands of the Prophet, Die is Cast, The Visitor is just landmark Star Trek any way you cut it. I mean, he directed some of my absolute favorite episodes of Deep Space Nine. Dr. Bashir, I presume, You're Cordially Invited. Inter Arma Enum Silent Leges he did, and then go down the list of Voyager. Voyager is the good example, by the way, again, of these episodes with okay scripts that he made something a little bit more special, and then, really good scripts that he took somewhere else. I mean, just look at Non Sequitur, look at Flashback, look at Future's End, Scorpion 1, Killing Game is such a cool episode. You can go on down the list. I love that he got to do both parts of Equinox. Only so much anybody could do with Spirit Folk. And Author isn't a particularly great episode, but he did it yeoman's work as well on Enterprise. Some of the better episodes of that show are his. Precious Cargo comes to mind, Proving Ground, Borderland. These are some solid episodes of a show that at the time didn't click. Shuttle Pod 1, I think, was also an important episode. Anything with Enterprise also has that benefit of hindsight. I don't think people appreciated it as much in the moment as they do now. He's number one for a reason. He did a span of episodes. He did funny episodes. He did action episodes. He did character-heavy episodes. He did ship episodes. He did wider scope episodes, and he did all of them really well. So across the board, he's my number one.
I was just saying the thing with TNG and the reason why he directed so few is because he was part of the director in training program. I don't think he graduated until later. But also he just had a different role on Next Generation.
He was a production manager.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's why he didn't do as many TNG. He got the opportunity on DS9 to really sort of show that he could direct, and then Voyager is obviously where he did most of his directing.
1000% agree. And then I just want to do my honorable mentions. I've got to include Avery Brooks there. Les Landau, as I think I said, would be my number 9 if I was splitting Pevney and Daniels into 2. I think we need to include Robbie Duncan McNeil, Roxanne Dawson, and I really, really, really want to make sure we show some love to Alan Craker.
He's on my honorable mention.
Yeah, he definitely should have been in my list.
Yeah, he did a lot of episodes. Was it 38 across the board? And he did some of the best episodes of the shows he directed. I mean, you're looking at Children of Time.
3 finales, wasn't it?
Yeah, Children of Time, Call to Arms, Time's Orphan, Tears of the Prophets, What You Leave Behind, Bride of Chaotica, Mortal Coil for Voyager, Endgame, of course, Unimatrix Zero is great stuff.
Year of Hell.
Yeah. And then, Enterprise, you're looking at Fight or Flight, Expanse is good stuff, the Xindi.
But also Shockwave and 0 Hour are 2 of the best episodes of Enterprise.
Absolutely. And Home.
He was really good. He was really good.
Yeah. He was another one who I still would have put him, if I was going to do my stupid tie crap, I would have put him and Landau together, put it that way. And by the way, he went on to direct a lot of other television for a lot of other cool shows. You're talking Battlestar Galactica, you're talking Charmed, you're talking Supernatural and Bone. So all of the big shows of the day. Wasn't all science fiction.
I mean, you've mentioned a lot. I'm just going to say some of the newer directors, the directors who are on New Trek. Valerie Weiss, Amanda Rowe, Dan Liu, Larry Teng, and you mentioned Terry Matalas as well. Like those are people who are definitely going to be directors whose work I'll look out for in the future.
Oh yeah, and Hanelle Culpepper, don't forget about her. And I'd also be sure to include Olatunde Osunsanmi. We'll forgive him for Section 31, but he did direct a lot of interesting Star Trek.
Did we mention Alexander Singer at all?
No, we did not.
So that's another one. He directed Relics, which I love, Relics, and also Ship in a Bottle, and Hard Time, which is a DS9 one that I really, really like. But my number 1, it's Les Landau.
Ah, okay.
58 episodes in total, 34 TNG, 14 Deep Space Nine, 9 Voyager, and 1 Enterprise. He's one of the few guys who was right there from the very beginning of the Berman era. He was on Encounter at Farpoint as first AD, served as first AD through most of season 1 of Next Gen. I couldn't quite find out why, but he replaced director Russ Mabry on Code of Honor. All it says is that Mabry left the production. Don't know what that was about.
Maybe they saw the dailies.
I was going to say, incidentally, it is one of the worst episodes of Star Trek ever made. But then he was given the opportunity to make his full directorial debut with Arsenal of Freedom, which is an okay episode.
Nice idea, but very season 1.
Yeah. He started to properly direct episodes in season 2, starting with The Schizoid Man, I think, which is a good early episode. And then from season 3 onwards, that's when I think he started to set the tone for Next Gen. Some of the best episodes, we've mentioned them before, but Chain of Command Part 2, Tapestry, Sarek, Deja Q, Ensign Rowe, Family, Clues, Unification Part 1, Conundrum, Deep Space Nine, you got House of Quark, Second Skin, By Inferno's Light, and Invasive Procedures, and Voyager episodes time and again, Prime Factors, Heroes and Demons, Virtuoso. He's a director who understands emotion really, really well and how best to capture it. And I think of episodes such as Sarek and Chain of Command and Family and Tapestry as really good examples. You feel the moments which is partly down to the actors, but also partly how you shoot them and edit the scenes together. And I think Les was just, his work stands out.
Agreed.
His name for me is synonymous with quality. His episodes always felt a little bit different while staying within the parameters of a serialized TV show. The other thing that I wanted to mention was that, particularly on Voyager, it sounds like he sort of served as a mentor to the actors who wanted to become directors, particularly Robbie, Roxanne, and Tim Russ. Apparently, they were often asking him questions when he was directing an episode of theirs, and just would watch him direct. You know, even if they weren't in the scene, they would turn up to set to see how he was doing stuff. So he sounds like he was a bit of a mentor to everyone. But as I mentioned, he's a mysterious figure. Just couldn't find much out about him. I really went looking.
Cool. So that's our list of favourite Star Trek TV episode directors. What do you think, though? What do you think about our choices? Is there anyone we left out, even of our honourable mentions? Please let us know. The ways to contact us are included in the description of the episode.
It is interesting that we all had different number ones.
Yeah.
I mean, we shared quite a few.
Well, I love that we all had the same number 3. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a magic number, baby. So we'll see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.
Peace, love, and logic, everybody.
It's all right, bit.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Final Frontier, a Star Trek podcast with Rich Matthews, Ian Spelling and Toby Weidman. If you want to get in contact with us, you can email us on beyondffpod@gmail.com or check us out on social media. You can even join our Patreon at BFF Beyond the Final Frontier. Huge thanks go out to Alex Weidman for the brilliant original music. Please search Alex Weidman Composer on YouTube to hear the full fantastic theme and more. Also thanks goes to award-winning voiceover artist Cissy Jones for our excellent opening monologue. Find out more about her incredible work at cissyjones.com. And of course, last but not least, our brilliant artwork comes from the designer Russell Seal. Discover more of his work on behance.net/Russell Seal. Thanks again and see you next episode, Beyond the Final Frontier.